In this episode, we're going to take you through the process of choosing a buyer's agent. With the proliferation of new buyer's agents across the country, we're going to explore how you can work out who is really likely to save you money and buy you a better asset. We will reveal the red flags you can easily find on many buyer's agent websites and lift the lid on the fact or fiction of those elusive off-market gems. How do buyer's agents get access to so many?
Welcome to The Elephant in the Room. This is the podcast where we love to talk about the big things in property that never usually get talked about. I'm Veronica Morgan, real estate agent, buyer's agent and buyer's agent mentor, co-host of Foxtel's Location Australia, author of Auction Ready and co-host of Your First Home Buyer Guide.
And I'm Chris Bates, mortgage broker, recently ranked number 5 in Australia out of over 18,000 brokers in the annual MPA Top 100 Mortgage Broker Awards. Before we get started, I need to let you know that nothing we say here can be taken as personal advice. We always recommend you engage the services of an appropriate and experienced professional.
Today, Chris and I are going to give you an insight into how to choose a good buyer's agent. There are a lot of new entrants to the market and many are ill-equipped to really add value to their buying clients, but many are great at self-promotion. So today we'll give you the tools to sort the wheat from the chaff. Now, Chris, I know that you have worked with buyer's agents over many years, and in fact, you've long had a practice of recommending that your clients use a buyer's agent. How long have you been doing that for?
Even before I was a mortgage broker, all the way back to 2012, I was educated on what they are, and just fortunately, I think, not whether people are interested or not, but basically when I was looking for a new role in financial advice, I had a few different offers on the table. There was this interesting company in Melbourne, I was living in Melbourne at the time, and it had Property Planning Australia, it was called, and I was like, oh, that's a bit different. I don't know anything about property. I know a bit about investment management, and this is going to be a good experience. And ignorantly, I knew nothing, absolutely nothing, because the financial advice world is absolutely all around investment products, right? And property is a dirty word. And, fast forward, I'm now talking 12 years later, it's still very much like that. It's still nowhere near the level. Property market's 3 times the size of super. Does it deserve 3 times the amount of time in a conversation? Probably, but it doesn't get that. It gets none at all. And they're completely, we're trying to solve that as a business, as broking, etc. But I joined them and they actually worked with Kate Bakos. I started working with Kate. I went to, I said, Kate, look, I don't know anything about property. Can I come out with you on the weekends and go to open homes with you? And I did that multiple times and went to auctions with her and, what's the value and saw how she dealt with clients, etc. We then worked with different buyer's agents. But when I started this business 10 years ago, I really went on a journey and tried to seek out and build networks with every buyer's agent that I thought really ticked the boxes, right? And I've met lots. I mean, I think I'm part of Reba, one of the only three affiliates. I'm one of those. Yeah. I'm massive fans of the Reba. But I think I was doing a thing for them last week. I think I worked with 30 of the Reba members at different points. And I think that's part of picking a great buyer's agent is one buyer's agent isn't enough. You actually need to know as a broker, we need to because we get clients buying all over. And, one of the biggest mistakes I think, which we'll talk about today, is picking a buyer's agent that can, or a company that can buy anywhere. And so I look forward to unpacking this today.
Yeah. And look, in that time that you have been aware of buyer's agents and working with buyer's agents for the 10 years of your business, the space has changed enormously. I mean, my business is now 15 years old and it's changed incredibly in that time within the industry, but on the outside of the buyer's agent side of things. What have you noticed over that time?
Look, I think consumers have got more awareness. However, their understanding of the value proposition versus what it actually is still a huge gap. I find one of the most valuable things I can do for clients is educate them on the value of a buyer's agent, the true value in my eyes, what it is, and killing some myths, and helping them join those dots and giving them the confidence that it is actually worth paying for a good one. That would be the first thing I've noticed, that the consumer's more aware but still uninformed. However, there's also a proliferation of being a cool job to do.
Yeah.
And it's been perpetuated on the internet that it's really easy to do and anyone can do it. And
all you need is a laptop and a phone.
That's right. And I would say that there's been a proliferation of marketing led buyer's agents, but when you go on their LinkedIn profile and you see what their background is and how they got into it, you've just got to be a little bit careful. I think you got to be now more than ever careful on who you choose, because there has been this explosion of entrants that on the tin look great because of their marketing's great, but what's their experience? I think buyer's agency is a job where it takes years to get good at. I don't think it's a scalable business. That's why I wouldn't want to run one, because I think it takes time and experience, and you've got to build an amazing team, and you do so few transactions that your learnings are slow. Your mistakes, and you never learn as well as actually retrospectively looking at your own actions. And so I don't think you learn well from a textbook, right? You can learn from other great people in the industry, but ultimately I think nothing beats on the ground. And I think a lot of those new buyers agents, the guinea pigs, are their clients, and people are paying, premium prices to be the guinea pig. And that's my worry with the current buyers agents industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sum up of what I've observed as well from inside the industry. And certainly you don't want to be that buyer's agent that sales agents laugh at behind your back, which I'll get into why they do that coming up. You don't want to be that client of that buyer's agent who needs to sue them down the track. And I've been speaking with a few people in the insurance space, and there's been some litigation, but it doesn't ever get to court. So there's no transparency around the true costs and the true damages that can happen as a result of using somebody who doesn't have the proper experience. So I'll just quickly explain the licensing process, and even draw a distinction between financial planning and buyer's agency. You just said that the value of residential property in this country is 3 times that of superannuation, right? Yet to advise people in the superannuation space, you need to go and get at a minimum. Is it a diploma?
Oh no, it's going up now. There's a whole change in the advice world. I'm not exactly sure where phase is up to. You do need to get a degree, and
great.
It's definitely getting way better in the advice world. I'm not exactly sure where phase is, because they keep changing the rules on it. Like, it keeps getting watered down. The whole advice industry, though, is actually, because advice numbers have halved, is actually going to get deregulated. It's actually flip the other way.
So regulation didn't work.
Yeah.
Unintended consequences.
And I actually think the people in surviving, the advice industry is actually going through, I'd say, a time in the sun, because it's a lot of the people left, which is probably a good thing, with the dead wood in the industry. The bad advisors felt it was too much hard to get away with this anymore, and so they've left. But they that halved advisor numbers, the ones who stuck around are the ones who truly invested, because they had to educate themselves. They had to go and study, because they know if they didn't, then they couldn't take that gamble. That's their livelihood.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are wanting to do it long term, because you wouldn't have stayed in unless you had a long term future. And I think consumers' need for advice is greater than ever. And what they're struggling is delivering the advice at a cost efficient price.
Yeah.
And a part of that's because of the regulation and their qualifications, and they do deserve to, because they're more qualified, deserve to make a good income, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're having to, that's the challenge, but it is increasing.
It is a challenge. And so on the property side of things, buyer's agents have to be licensed, right? A property advisor doesn't. Obviously I'm on the board of PIPA, and in PIPA we have a qualified property investment advisor. There's a course you can do, and that's totally voluntary. Nobody requires that. That is by people who actually have a desire to lift their own skills. On the buyer's agent side of things, you need to have a license. So you need to be a licensed real estate agent. If you're running your own business, you need to, every state and territory is different, right? But you need to have a diploma qualification as well as your Cert 4, right? Now, the problem is that the licensing process is the same that a property manager or a sales agent goes through. And in some states, you need to have some experience as well as getting your qualifications. In others, you don't. But bottom line, you get trained to be a sales agent or a property manager. You don't actually get trained to be a buyer's agent. And what people and our legislators and our regulators clearly fail to understand is that you need more skills if you're going to advise people on what property to buy, doing the due diligence and working out how to pay for it and negotiating. You actually need more skills than are taught in that cert for. The diploma is just about business. It's not even about skills of doing the job. And therein lies a problem, that you have a bunch of people who are newly minted and qualified and actually think they have the skills required to do the job, because it's never been mentioned, even in their education, that if you're going to be a buyer's agent, you need to learn a few extra things. So that is a problem, and with that overconfidence that comes with ignorance, effectively. And there's a whole brand, and that's not even, And there's also there's certain training programs out there, for instance, that are very much focused at helping people set up buyer's agency businesses, helping them take the shortcuts to get their full license so that they're able to trade without having to work for somebody else, and not actually teaching them skills of doing the job, but teaching them how to market, how to sell the dream, how to sell the property dream to people. So for starters, they've been sold the dream on how to give up their day job, work 5 hours a week. I kid you not, I've read these ads. I've taken screenshots of them because they're appalling. One actually said, learn how to invest with your client's money. I kid you not, right? So, and you only need a laptop and a phone. This isn't a joke. This is serious, right? And so it is very easy to become a buyer's agent, is basically what I'm saying. And so you have that qualification. They might think that equips them to do what they need. And as a consumer, you might make the mistake of thinking that qualification equips them to do what you need them to do for you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these newer buyer's agents go and buy in easy markets, right, where, it is easy to buy, and the agents aren't used to usually dealing with buyer's agents. If they are, they're investor buyer's agents, and they always go, that's great news, the buyer's agents looking at this. That means they don't probably care too much about what they're paying for it.
They want to get a deal done.
And this is where, they do naturally go down. I think it's the evolution of a buyer's agent, because to become a home buyer specialist, you have to have a bit of confidence that you know where to be a home buyer specialist in. And you've got to really niche, and niching's hard. Anyone it's a confidence thing, right? Knowing what your value proposition is. And so a lot of them go down this investor route where it's easy to buy. And I think one of the things that makes it hard to enter the industry, I don't know if it's a great job personally. I think you have an intangible product, and you've got to go and find. You haven't got so for us as brokers, right? If a client walks in, we can add a lot of value through education and talking through their plan. And then once we know what they can do, I know we've got a product. I just need to package it up and get it through the banks. Yes, selecting it sometimes touchy, but you get better at that over time, and you can systemize it. As a buyer's agent, great property's hard to find. Your work starts as soon as that. Well, actually, work starts doing a good brief up front, because if you don't do a good brief, you're stitching yourself up.
Correct.
Yeah, but if you've done a good brief is equal to a good asset. Finding good assets hard, and it's not easy. And I think that's where, I think it's a real difficult thing. And that's where I think when you're coming new into a buyer's agent, yeah, you know what a good asset is. Buy a north, go a good street, don't buy the tower, blah, 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 blah. You can learn those things, but that's just your ticket to the game. Then you've actually got to go and play. And then you've got to deal with agents. And then you've got to deal with other buyers. You've got to deal with auctions. You've got to get, and that whole relationship world, I would think it would take years to even build the trust with these agents, but also get good at it and understand what people are actually, like the game, how it actually works.
Oh, that's it. I mean, in my mentoring program, I've got 2 whole separate modules, one dealing with clients and one dealing with agents, because the reality is that those 2 relationships are really critical, knowing how to manage them, and they are never as simple as what somebody might think. At the outset, there's always nuance, and there's always complexity, and there's mastery in how you actually manage and handle your clients, set their expectations, educate them, make sure that they're not chasing unicorns, all that sort of stuff. And then there's mastery in how you work with agents so that they actually respect you. And do you know what? It is really interesting. I went to a conference a month ago, and I went to the same conference a year ago, right? It was the RISE conference. And a year ago I went there, and I was the only buyer's agent there. I was the only buyer's agent there this year as well. The rest were sales agents and property managers. And a year ago, nobody sort of said much about buyer's agents. This year, I have people coming up and volunteering to me their disdain for dealing with buyer's agents. And when I talk about disdain, they're basically saying to me, they've sort of fallen into two camps. I'd say, so you're dealing with many buyer's agents? Yeah, great, And what do you mean by that? Well, they are a pain in the neck. They don't know what they're doing. They disrupt. They don't know how to manage their client properly. They make offers that their clients don't back them up on. They disrupt open houses. They disrupt auctions. Like there's all this litany of things that are being. These are good agents, Then I talk to other agents. I was at the RISA conference, the Real Estate Institute of South Australia conference a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking to agents there who are less used to dealing with buyer's agents. And they were like, oh, yeah, there's some really good ones. And I'm like, tell me what does a good buyer's agent look like? Oh, well, they basically they want to get a deal done, so they just pay. They don't get too difficult. They're easy to deal with. They give me the offer that I tell them I need. I'm actually and then, dig a little bit deeper, and I find that they think they're good because they buy lots of their shit stock. And they're easy to deal with, right? So they're going, yeah, I love buyer's agents. These are fantastic. The locals don't want this stuff and they won't pay the prices these buyer's agents are paying. And do they come and inspect the property? No. They rely on the videos I send them. No wonder they love dealing with buyer's agents from eastern states, that are buying the stuff that's easy to buy, right? And so this is the thing. Sales agents are starting to really, we're losing our ability. 10 years ago, we had respect. Consumers respected us because we were on their side and we were trustworthy, right? Agents had our respect, respected us because they knew that if they were dealing with a professional buyer's agent, that we had a real buyer and we were going to do a deal with a professional. That respect has gone. So agents have lost the respect. The next one is, as you mentioned, with consumers, there's awareness has gone up about the need for a buyer's agent potentially, or the fact that we are there to help. Potentially the next step here is the consumers will switch on about, they're not all good, actually. And this is what this podcast today is about, really, because I want people to be aware of what not to go with, what the danger signs are. And you mentioned earlier that quite often buyer's agents, when they start out, they will go down the investor path, and it makes sense for good business, right? It's scalable, right? Investors will often buy more than one property.
Yeah.
They will tell their friends because, socially they've got other people that want to buy investment properties.
Yeah.
They're less emotional, so therefore they're more likely to take guidance. They will buy anywhere. They're agnostic as to where they buy, so I don't have to be a local specialist. Well, that takes away all that necessary, years and years of building up local expertise and local relationships and all that sort of stuff. So he's actually a quick way into the industry and serving clients who are not discerning enough to realise that they are not getting what they think they're getting. And it's often cloaked up in this data-driven, I'm a data-driven buyer's agent. And it's the assumption being that making decisions based on data is so much smarter than making decisions based on knowledge and experience. And so it's an easy sell. It's a really easy sell. And this, and consumers fall for it. So that's the first thing I would say, that to be very, very careful if you are going with borderless buyer's agents who tell you they can buy anywhere. Because I'm telling you, even just forget whether they can choose a good asset. The legislation and the vendor disclosure varies so greatly in every state in this country. In fact, WA, which is where a lot of these buyer's agents are buying at the moment, that has so few consumer protections, that market. And if these buyer's agents from, say, Sydney or Melbourne don't recognise that, they will go there and commit their clients to properties that with obvious problems that anybody who knows what they're doing in that market will pick up, and they won't pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually don't think they know what a good asset is, in fairness.
I don't think they do either.
I think these, think about this. So since 2014, it would have been a lot of clients. I'm talking thousands and thousands of clients. And, I know I've seen clients' portfolios from pretty much everyone because they come to us and we'll to buy that from, and et cetera. Usually you're right, it's actually investor sort of driven buyers agent. They've not just bought one, they've completely ignored as well what they were doing around their home, and is that a better option? Should they have spent more? They just, instead of buying one at $1 million, they just bought two at $1 million. They bought four at 500,000. Like there's literally just a cookie cutter approach. Often, they've entered markets, but they bought the B and the C's and the D's in those suburbs. Okay, they've made a bet on a suburb. Okay, great. Okay, but you haven't actually even bought in the best part of that suburb. You bought the south-facing block on the busy road with privacy problems, that nowhere near the shops, there's nowhere near public transport. You're getting, you're taking a bet, but you're also taking it because you don't know that local market. And to be honest, you don't really care because you focus on the suburb median and you're focusing on the yield and, what it was going to be worth in 6 months' time. And I think that's what I've seen. It's absolutely gone nuts in the last 2 years with social media and this investor belief that, and I do think it targets a lot of first-time buyers who should be buying houses. I've got money in the bank. Let's just buy a few investment properties. There's this data AI sort of thing happening. And the problem is when these businesses get a lot of inquiry, they've got to scale. They've got to get a team. And it's hard to go and find good people. And how do you train that team? It's really hard. It's a hard job. So you've got to train them on what's a good asset, how to buy, how to deal with agents, what good part. And they're going to suburbs which they don't know what the locals want. It actually takes years to figure that out, where the rat runs are, what some of the quirks in the suburb where the locals just won't buy. And I think this is one of the big things. It actually, once you think about it, you know that it doesn't make sense. Look, if you were going to go and buy on the Perth market, go use a buyer's agent that's been there for 10 years. It buys for owner-occupiers and buy Perth. But don't use Sydney-based company that tells you to buy in Perth. And definitely don't use company that tells you to buy in Perth and to sell in Perth. Then we're going to go into Adelaide and then we're going to get 3 of those. Then we're going to go buy one in Brisbane. And we're just going to time investment markets with your money so I can sell to you 10 times rather than 1 time. And so just be really careful. I do see this as a bit of an issue because we've been offered partnerships with all these companies. They come to us and we say no. We could easily say yes to all the investment work because we know at the end of the day, the client outcomes aren't great and they're pushing. And there's the question I always ask is, well, what do you do when a client comes to you with a massive borrowing capacity? The question is, we'll buy more. That means that's like going into a financial planner and say, I'm going to ignore all alternative strategies. I'm just going to do the one that I'm good at. And so that is just really bad advice.
Well, that's not just the one I'm good at. It's the one that I make the most amount of money out of. And look, the simple thing is that you're absolutely right. I don't think most of these people have even considered that there are good assets and bad assets. They think that there's good suburbs and bad suburbs, and that is actually missing a huge trick. And the problem is that with every suburb, you've got median growth rate, and that means 50% of properties will underperform, 50% will overperform. So how does somebody who doesn't know the area, doesn't know the local market, how do they choose an overperformer? Do they even talk about overperformers? And do they even understand what that means? And if they do, how do they measure it? How do they benchmark it? How do they demonstrate evidence that their approach has worked? And as we've uncovered in many episodes before, you can lie with statistics. So therefore, it takes an enormous amount of mental ability to be able to actually debunk these. They're very compelling and convincing, but they're not right. They're actually wrong. So you mentioned about the value add of a buyer's agent, and there's the real value add versus a perceived value add. And I think, let's face it, nobody really wants to have to pay for something that culturally we think we can or should be able to do for ourselves. So when we're buying our own home, or even if we're buying an investment property in an area that we know, then we think, oh, we should be able to work it out. So therefore, buyers will only justify using a buyer's agent if they can save more money than the fee, or they can get access to a hidden market, the off markets. Or in the case of these investors, they'll justify it by saying, well, these people have got access to all the data smarts that I don't have, so therefore I can't do it myself. So it feeds perfectly into this this belief that Australians have that we should be able to buy ourselves if we know the market, but if we don't know the market, we're happy to pay somebody else. But the trap is you're paying somebody who really doesn't know it either. It's just that they're better at talking the talk. See, and both of these sort of saving money and accessing the hidden market as well, the off markets, these can be very, very misleading value propositions. I've seen some buyer's agents' websites where it's got a whole list of properties that they've negotiated a deal on and the original asking price, and it claims they've saved X amount of dollars on each one. You go, well, they all rely on that original asking price to have been fair market value. So we know vendors will price properties at, whatever they want. So even making these claims about saving money, they're very hard to quantify and hard to verify, really. But the off-market thing is a really dangerous path for buyers to go down, choosing a buyer's agent because they have access to this hidden market that nobody else has access to.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes, I buy X amount off market. Okay, great, that's good. That doesn't mean that they're good because they're off market. It might be great for your marketing because you say, well, 30% of the properties you'd never have seen because the only one he sees off the market. Well, no, actually, like if you're a qualified buyer on a hit list in a suburb and the agents know about you, do you think they're just going to show it to their buyers agent, or they're going to show it to as many buyers that are qualified as possible to create competition, which is in their vendor's interest? Like, obviously, they're going to show it to other buyers, right? I mean, that's the first thing. I do think you got to be scared with the market. If any buyer's agent says that, that's like, red flag one.
They all say it.
Yeah, red flag.
Pretty much.
I do think it's a competency with your value proposition. Like, I think ultimately the greatest buyer's agent will say, yeah, okay, we do buy 30% off markets, but we also see lots that we don't buy, and you're probably good to get access to those. But some of them we do genuinely. I do think you do get first access. I do think I have absolutely seen it. It's even happened to myself personally, where the buyer's agent, because they've got a pre-approved buyer, because the agent knows, likes, trusts them, is all basically a friend with that buyer's agent. They know that they're not going to stuff them around. If there's a chance that vendor is willing to make a quick deal and they're happy to take a price, and they don't really want to go through the whole process of styling and doing the photos, and they just want a price, then absolutely sometimes getting a buyer's agent clients through is a good way to test the market, but also without having to put it online if they know it. But they don't want to do that like with lots of buyers, because it's then kind of on the market. It kind of, you lose that ability to list it on the market. So they sometimes will just give it to a few. This is my experience, prove me if I'm wrong. And I do think that first access can be the difference maker, because if you get access to it at 11 o'clock, even if they were going to show buyers on the Friday as a Tuesday or something, you could quickly go and do your due diligence and get an offer on the table before anyone else even knows about it. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't going to get shown to any other people. You might have just got a first run at it. The other thing I laugh about marketing with buyers agents is the average times to buy. How quick they can do it. It's like, hang on a sec. I know you can turn around fast, but fast doesn't equal quality. Actually, what I care about is how good are the properties you're buying, the quality of the asset. And I do find it hard, though, for buyers. I do feel sorry for you a little bit, because you're at the mercy of the market. And ultimately, clients are hard. I'm not a great client for buyer's agents. I'm actually working with one right now for my sister. And, we're going through it, eastern suburbs of Sydney. We're trying to buy a place. And I know I'm not a great client. Now, I've got too high standards. I look for a unicorn. I'm too discerning. Sometimes it's hard looking for that needle in the haystack and low listings. And so there is this pressure that builds between a client and a buyer's agent, this tension between what a client wants and what the market's going to deliver and what their budget is and the time it's on their books. And I think one of the things, the best thing to deal with a buyer's agent is you get your brief up front and you spend time up front with the buyer. It's in your interest, plus it's in the buyer's agent's interest to actually see if what you want is achievable and the compromises you're willing to make now. Because if not, if you don't have those conversations now, you have those conversations too much, you feel like the buyer's agent's trying to sell to you and water down your brief, and then you feel like they're trying to look in their interest, which they're not. They're just trying to get a deal done for you in the marketplace rather than just letting time evaporate. And so I think that's an observation I see. If you're going to deal with the buyer's agent, get your brief right.
100%. Do you know, back to the off-market thing, yes, you're right. Every now and then you get one of those lovely little, this is a relationship deal. You're only getting in because you've been, working that agent because you know that they've got something. And They get you in. They don't get anybody else in, or it's just one other person. And you do get that great opportunity. I mean, we bought a property for a client in Balmain earlier this year, and we've been working with that agent over, Donna got it together, I think, in the end of January, and we've been really working with them. Knew we had a whiff of it for about 6 weeks. It was tenanted before we could finally get into that property, right? Now, so that's a classic example of a really and it was a cracker A-grade property, great street. You know, you want it and you're going to wait for it. Now, however, that same agency, I've spoken to them before about some of the relationships they have with other buyers agents where they feed them these off-markets that they know they haven't got a hope in hell of getting away on the open market for the price that they get. You know, they know that there's certain buyers agents who have that's their pitch. That's their value proposition is we get, you know, X percentage of off markets. They have to sort of keep working on their stats. And for them, the clients are sold this idea of getting access to something nobody else gets access to. It's not really about, is it a quality property? Is it a fair price even? And so, you know, the agent was laughing with us about some of the deals that they've got over the table with this buyer's agent that's effectively sold this shit to their clients, you know. So this is some of these relationships that are very close. So in certain circumstances, no one else actually got access to those properties. But you know what? If they did, there would have been no competition. You know, you still would have been the only one buying it. So this is a problem, right? And we look at it go, oh my God, I can't believe they paid that for that. That was a buyer's agent. That is mortifying.
I'm on a personal mission to help more people make better property decisions. And you can find out all about what I'm working on at veronicamorgan.com.au. And there you'll find resources for first home buyers, details about my buyer's agent mentoring program, access to suburb help for investors, or if you're looking to buy your dream home or an investment property in Sydney's inner west, eastern suburbs or lower North Shore, you can connect with my team at Good Deeds Property Buyers.
If you're thinking about buying your first home, upgrading to a new one, or purchasing an investment property anywhere in Australia, we would love to carefully guide you through this journey and importantly get the finance right. Please reach out via our website, wealthful.com.au.
I'll give you a funny story, right?
Yeah, go.
Well, my daughter does swimming lessons, and an agent up on the beaches. Also got two young kids, and so I'm doing the swimming lessons. I'm always chatting to him. We actually bought a house through that agent, so I became sort of mates through swimming a little bit, and talking about buyers agents, and it came up, and I was like, well-known buyers agent, who's not from the beaches. In fairness, he doesn't do a lot up here. Was on one of their properties. And then it's a boy, it's a guy. I don't want to give away too much in this situation. But they rocked up, and this person rocked up and said, look, can we just wrap this up fast? I've got places to be. It's Saturday night. I want to go out. And it was a late afternoon auction on a Saturday. And they knew that this buyer's agent was going to get the deal done right. But what they needed to do for the vendor is to slow this down because it's going to make him more and more frustrated, and it's going to make him overpay because he wants to get this deal done so he can go out. He had a dinner. He was very vocal about it. Anyway, so they delayed the auction, firstly. And so they said, there's issues, we can't do this. And they delayed the auction. And then they basically played the auction, and then there was like a vendor bid. And then they set the reserve really high, and they played this guy like a violin. He said it was a joke. He ended up paying it was like $200K more than anyone near it. They got like a great price for it. And it was like a horrible story about a buyer's agent going wrong. But it's exactly what you're talking about. It's when the agent knows the motivation of the buyer's agent, and they're not, and they can play them. And and that's just one example, but I've seen it time and time again where clients have come to us and they've already had a buyer's agent, a friend, and I look at it. I can remember there's one in the east just a couple of years ago. There was one down in Mornington. I'm thinking of recent, there's been multiple times where clients have been set on a buyer's agent. I've tried to convince them and say, maybe you shouldn't use them, they've only been doing the job. Or it's an investment person. I just say, show me what they send you, and then I, rip it to pieces, basically. So I wouldn't go anywhere near that. Have you not looked at the Google Maps? But the agents know it, and they play them and they use them and they get their offers and they shop them, because the reality is the agents who own a market. They didn't just get there. They sat on the phones. They worked their way up. They waited for the king dog, to move on finally, and then they finally got their chance, and they're not letting go of their stronghold, right? And they cream it for as long as they can, right? Because they work so hard to get there, right? And then they get this call from some young buyer's agent that's been doing it 2 minutes that they haven't heard from, and they know they're not going to see him, and the buyer's agent starts playing hardball.
Yep.
They're like, they've seen it all before.
They have. It's like, don't kid a kidder. These guys will run rings around you, kiddo.
And they do. And it's anything, and I've seen it, and I think they put them to the bottom of the list.
Look, I spoke to an agent a couple of weeks ago who said to me, you know what, when I get these new buyer's agents come across, they get the same amount of information out of me that a first home buyer would. I treat them like a first home buyer, because honestly, they're just as useless. They got no idea what's going down. They try to strong arm me and all these silly tactics. And I'm like, you guys are just inexperienced. Every time you open your mouth, you're showing me how inexperienced you are. And so therefore, I'm just going to treat you like you got zero experience. So therefore, their clients have got no advantage at all through having engaged a buyer's agent. And, and then I just think to myself, and then I said to this particular agent, and I was speaking to a number of them at the time, do you know any good ones? And every time I ask somebody, do you know any good ones? They will tell me, oh, yeah, I do. And they will tell me somebody's been in the game for 10 years or so. And I will know that person. And this isn't all just about it's just an old guard. This is actually about earning the respect, consistently showing up, learning the market, doing deals with these people over and over again, not being hoodwinked, not being able to be hoodwinked, and them having a professional respect. So I think it's interesting, as I said, I asked agents how they find dealing with buyer's agents, and I'm finding more and more are extremely negative. And you know what? Sales agents hate these newbies because they are a time waster and annoying to deal with. And then unless, of course, they're just buying all the crap listings that I mentioned earlier, they love those newbies. Oh, yeah, they're great. They're fantastic. But I think agents' relationships are one thing, because that's another thing that a lot of buyer's agents, they pitch. Oh, I get all these off markets because I got all these agent relationships, and they can be some cozy relationships with people that these agents are going, great, I'm just going to feed them on my shit because they keep lapping it up. But agent respect is quite another. And when you've got a buyer's agent that actually has the respect of agents, that's something that is a really good thing to look for. And I think that, from a consumer thinking about using a buyer's agent, you need to get more discerning in your questions. So I've got some coming up for you. So I've got some clues here in terms of what to look for.
I think it's one of those jobs, absolutely experience matters. It's hard. This is really elitist almost. You've got to as a consumer, I'm well, I know this is not great for supporting the new blood in the industry, right? But as someone who's recommending our clients to use a buyer's agent, what's going to de-risk them the most? I do think, experience matters, not just the amount of years that they've been buyer's agent, but how many they've actually been buying and where have they been buying, and are they buying something similar to you? And do the agents know, like, and trust them? And, and have they got that real local knowledge? Because you don't really last if you haven't, 5-10 year plus, usually, if you don't get some runs on the board.
It's too tough. It's not easy.
So we do really look for that. I do think experience matters a lot. Whereas I think some other jobs, it's not just the, experience doesn't matter as much. Sometimes their ethics and all that sort of stuff matter just as much. And so I really look for that. And I do think that, buyers are wise to ask a bunch of agents in the area who they really rate. There are a lot of buyers agents that are really hard to find. I'm like, oh, you're using so-and-so. I've never heard of them. And then I look at them and they've been doing it for 10 years in a suburb somewhere in Melbourne or near Brisbane. I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually a great little find. I'd love to work with them. And so, yeah, do ask some agents, but don't just ask one. A lot of agents will just tell you not great ones. But that's not the reason you should do it. You should then do a lot more digging on their due diligence. But, yeah.
And in fact, if you do ask an agent and they refer a buyer's agent to you, I would say you have to ask the question, do you get a referral fee?
Oh,
because the thing is that if they're just automatically referring someone, and there's money changing hands. So So I encourage you to have a conversation with agents around, do you buy with many, you see many around, who do you think's good? It's more of a less, I need a recommendation. Some of the things to look for. If the buyer's agent says that they do due diligence, and some don't, they don't even use the words because they don't realise they need to, because they don't learn that in Cert 4, okay? But if they do say they do due diligence, ask them to explain their process to you, show you examples of what they provide a client. If their list of what the due diligence that they do doesn't include at least one thing that you hadn't already thought of yourself, run. There should be things in there that surprise you that they do. And that is not enough. Look for how they advise their client. Anyone who could produce a report, right? Anybody can produce a report and that bamboozles the uninitiated, right? But what are the red flags? How do they advise you when to proceed with caution or when not to proceed at all? That's what I want to know. And ask them about their pricing process. To do this right takes time. And Chris will tell you, AVMs have not sorted out predicting prices, right? And also, recently I saw a job description for a buyer's agent associate from an award-winning buyer's agent. And in the KPIs, which was on LinkedIn, which I found fascinating, the KPI was that they must do price research in 45 minutes or less. Now, it's interesting because at least they do it, and some don't even, right? They press a button on RP data, but 45 minutes is not enough time to properly price a property. I'd love to have it automated and AI and all that sort of stuff. There's lots of promises there, but I tell you what, no AI has shown me any accurate property price predictions that I would want to rely on. How about you, Chris?
Oh, look, clients ask me all the time, what's it worth? And I kill that very quickly, explain that it's hours of research. It's local market knowledge. It's knowing what's on the market, what is sold on the weekend, how hot's the bidders.
What's the backstory of some of those sales?
That's a good one, right? And you can't. There's so many things that you just can't pick a price. And even when you got your finger on the pulse and you go into every open, it's still a little bit of an intangible. And there's a range. It's not actually a price. And is it under competition? Is it not? Like, is it? And there's the building. Is how cool is the building? It's like, I don't know. That is I wouldn't want to do it personally. It's not 45 minutes.
It definitely. I wish it was.
If you're buying in areas, the only time you could potentially do it in an
apartment in a 1,000 apartment complex, perhaps.
And and you've got 10 sales in there, and all you're buying is something.
In which case, you probably shouldn't be buying in there.
Well, that's right. So, I do think that's I think it's just. All of those things about trying to do buyer's agent, it's not a fast job.
No.
There is a reason, people would say it's expensive. Well, to be honest, like the actual work involved for buying good property and all the stuff you see behind the scenes, I don't know whether it's that profitable unless it is a decent fee. You've got to make a profit at the end of it. Yeah. It's a stressful job. It's a 24/7 job. You do get some sales.
To be quite frank, actually, I don't think it is a 24/7 job. The reality is that you can set some good boundaries around your time. When it's on, though, it's 24/7. When a deal is on, when you have to pull out all stops to get things done, that's when you crank it up and you work into the all hours to get something done. But generally speaking, we've got good boundaries with our clients. So it's not, I wouldn't say 24/7.
Oh, yeah, I get it. You're not going to be like on call answering questions 24/7. But when it's a hot market, you've got all briefs. Like you're dealing on Sundays. You're dealing at late night. You're getting on. Absolutely, you've got to. You got to ultimately, the deal's got to be done and time is money. And you can't let that opportunity slip between your hands or for the buyer.
You make hay while the sun shines. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. And once you've done that pricing research, right, how does the buyer's agent guide you in setting your limit? This is a really important thing to ask. Do they have a framework? Do they have evidence that shows whether to pay a premium or not and under what circumstances? Because, there's some that I see it at auction. I see buyer's agents at auction who clearly have not had these conversations with their clients, and then they're at auction in the middle of the auction pressuring their client to add to their limit. This is not what a buyer's agent should ever be doing. Right? Absolutely not, right? Because they want to get a deal together and they've misunderstood or miscalculated the competition, and they haven't had the conversation about walking away at the right price. Another thing you want to see a buyer's agent, you want to see, can they read a contract? Now, obviously, there are different rules in different states. In Victoria, for example, it's Section 32. In New South Wales, it's a contract. Queensland, you need to get additional documentations because, this is the thing. Is the buyer's agent aware of the limitations of vendor disclosure in their state? How do they fill in the gaps? And this is a huge issue with borderless BAs who've got no idea that different states do not offer the same vendor disclosure that some states do. So this is horrific, just mind-boggling. And this is local knowledge, which is more than just the best streets. Do they know where the mozzies infest in summer? Locals do, right? Where the mould grows in winter? The locals do. They know which properties will only sell in summer, but a fly-in, fly-out buyer's agent who doesn't even fly in, they are not going to know that stuff. So,
even that fine, they do know it, but they don't apply it. And I do think there's a moral compass issue here.
Sometimes, yeah.
And I'm not afraid to call it out because I've seen the examples over the years and, and there's some big operators in this space that get a lot of publicity in different other investments. This is not just even people buying off the, selling, making big clips off the plan on new townhouses or house on land.
Established stock.
This is established. This is, the affordability belt of our capital cities. They are getting a bit of a nice time in the sun here in terms of growth because of the lower capacities and the push of affordability and, this investor market. But ultimately, even within those suburbs, they're not buying the best stuff, I would say. And, they know, I think that I love, what's wrong about the property, what's not great about the property. Like, that's the first thing you should be thinking about. It's all good, thinking about the positives of how this could double in value in 10 years' time and blah, 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 blah. All this wishful thinking. But what's going to hold it back? What's going to make it hard to sell? And you've got to look at it through that lens. Because if not, you're just looking at it through rose-colored glasses. And the things that are the negative about the property, you want to try to minimize that because that's obviously your risk.
Yep.
And, that's the thing. Is the aspect good? Is it a busy road? Has it got privacy problems? Blah, 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 blah. And just be honest with yourself. Like, what am I compromising on here? And is that factored into its price? I paid $700,000 for this, but one on a better street with north-facing rear sold for $710,000. Like, I'm overpaying. Should I even be buying this? Should I just wait for that? And I don't think people look at it. They've outsourced that risk. They just go with what the buyer's agent is, and they just, rather complain now and be a difficult client than in 10 years' time go back and try for ego and say, I told you so. Why did we buy that? Like, you've wasted the opportunity. You got to do your work up front. The good thing about property is if you do the hard yards up front, you get the investment returns down the line.
Yeah.
So it should be hard to buy. It shouldn't be fun. It should be exhausting, even when you're working with a buyer's agent.
So, yeah.
Work with it. You've got to get involved. You've got to get your hands dirty. Like whether you're buying an investment, don't ignorantly just outsource it and see how you go. I do think you've got to stay there as a bit of and I do that sometimes with buyer's agents and clients. I get in the middle there, not to play the buyer's agent, but sometimes if it's definitely a buyer's agent I'm not aware of, just to say, hey, shoot it to me, and I'm happy to just give you my frank thoughts. And it's for me to really suss them out as buyer's agents as well. And just to see, are they telling you about these negatives? And often they're not. And that's for me. So let's try it. And these people don't know what the negatives are. But if you think about livability of a suburb and where it's nice to live and what's a nice property to live in, start to put yourself in that. And different buyer pools as well. Like, what would a single like? Would a couple? Would a family like? Would a downsizer like? Would an older family like it? Would it, and that also sometimes expands the conversation. You go, well, no, this actually really only suits this type of buyer. And that's a concern. It's maybe just investor stock.
So one of the things that we teach our students in your first home buyer guide is always think about your future buyer. always, and a good buyer's agent will always be thinking about your out at some point in the future, your exit strategy. And that's the thing, is maximizing your opportunity to get maximum amount of people interested at some future point when you want to sell. That's fundamentally the secret to capital growth. So what you need to run from data-driven buyer's agents, because data without micro insights is dangerous. And what data are they relying on anyway? It's a secret sauce out there, and everyone's got their own secret recipes with their 13 or 11 herbs and spices, and it's all designed to make you feel confident that they have a formula, to go for. But there's very rarely is there any proof or evidence to support this formula. And if they're only using data, then they're leaving an enormous trick on the table. They're missing the biggest trick, which is asset selection. They don't even know how to do it most of the time. Check out their process on their website. Here's a hack for everyone, right? Go on their website and look at their process. I can't tell you how many new buyers agents that go and look at their website, and if there's no mention of due diligence or property evaluation, run a mile, because they haven't even thought of it. If they haven't even put it in their process, they haven't thought about it, then they're not going to be doing it, right? And so now that they hear this, if any of you are out there and you're inexperienced buyers agents, you think, shit, I better add due diligence into my process map on my website. I've got something else for buyers. That's when your potential clients go and ask for evidence of that. Ask to see examples, right? So the other thing on websites, a dead set killer for me, I love it. Check out their bio. If their experience, and that's with rabbit ears, refers to the time that they've invested in property themselves rather than professional property experience, run, right? I've been investing in property for 20 years. I've got 8 properties. How many of you got blah, blah, blah? Just because they've invested and bought a lot of properties doesn't actually mean that they've made good decisions. If they don't have a way of benchmarking those decisions and showing actually the proof is in the pudding, then, who cares? I don't care, because often what people do, they go, I love property. I love investing in it. I believe in my own thesis, and I'm so clever, I'm going to be able to do this for a living. And there's no actual basis or experience or exposure to methodologies outside their own methodology. Beware the off-market specialist. It's an easy sell for prospective clients, offering them an inroad to the hidden market, but is it fool's gold? I've had, as I mentioned earlier, agents confess to me that they give 1 or 2 buyers agents all of their overpriced off-markets because they'll happily buy crap for their clients, and the clients are hoodwinked because they feel like they've got something exclusive. So you want a buyer's agent with superior negotiation skills, and you do not want to be the client who is worse off from having a buyer's agent. So I'll wrap it up by just saying a great buyer's agent will educate you, will advise you, will give you an advantage over other buyers. They will fill in the knowledge gaps. They will level the playing field. The sales agent always knows more than a buyer. So a buyer's agent who's really good will be able to fill in those gaps so that you actually have almost as much information that as a sales agent. A great buyer's agent knows what's really going on, and they'll provide you with insights all along the way, which makes you make informed decisions because you've got your eyes wide open. And that's what you need to be looking for with a buyer's agent, none of these newbies.
I think we've nailed it. I do think that was a great episode. So I hope people have enjoyed it. And I think it's a journey, but I do think you need to spend your time, not just outsourcing it. The time you spend should be also selecting the buyer's agent. Take your time, speak to many, really, it's worth those extra hours, those coffees, that trip after work, and to see quite a few, because you'll very quickly see the gap between the good ones and the poor ones, but you need to get those reference points. And so, spend your time up front, but then don't give up there. To actually then work with the buyer's agent, because to actually get the best result, it's actually a team effort, I find, rather than the outsource option.
100%, and I started the buyer's agent mentoring program at the end of 2022 because I could see that there's this real problem out there with unskilled, inexperienced buyer's agents. And I know it's not quite the same. I've got people in the program that haven't got much experience, but I tell you what, they're doing it with our guidance and coaching and mentoring along the way. That's a hell of a lot better than these people who are out there without any guidance, or they've only got guidance from people who are really teaching them how to pitch to you and how to convince you that they've got the secret sauce. So it's really important to, And in some emerging markets, there are situations where in regional towns, for example, there might be buyer's agents who have got no experience and they're the only buyer's agent in the area. So if they don't actually have a mentor, they don't have somebody who's actively helping them to get that experience, again, you'd be better off doing it yourself. You really would.
If you have a question that you'd like us to answer in an upcoming Q&A episode, you can send us a voicemail or written question via the website, theelephantintheroom.com.au, or you can email us directly at questions@theelephantintheroom.com.au. If you like what you're hearing, please share this episode with others you feel would benefit. And while you're at it, why not leave us an iTunes review? 5 stars would be great. I know that sounds a bit cringy, but we have it on good authority that every review helps make it easier for other people to find out about us and hear what our amazing guests have to say.